Everyone in our entire social circle worshipped my son-in-law Ethan without a single doubt. To every neighbor, friend, co-worker, and distant relative, he was the textbook definition of a perfect, devoted husband. He was effortlessly charming, impeccably polite, endlessly generous, and overflowing with gentle affection for my daughter Lila in every public setting. He never missed a chance to smile for crowds, schmooze every guest at gatherings, compliment strangers, and play the doting spouse for the world to see. For 4 whole years, he carefully crafted and maintained an immaculate, flawless image of a happy, stable marriage, fooling absolutely everyone around us. But I was the only one who saw through his flawless mask and uncovered his horrifying true nature. Behind locked bedroom doors and private walls, this sweet-talking, crowd-pleasing gentleman was a cold, ruthless, manipulative abuser who spent every single day slowly breaking down my daughter, crushing her spirit, and destroying her entire identity bit by bit, with no mercy and no remorse. While the whole world sang Ethan's praises and hailed him as a model devoted spouse, my daughter Lila was trapped in a quiet, endless living hell that no one could fathom. No grand screams or dramatic fights filled their home. Instead, Ethan tortured her with slow, insidious, silent abuse that left no obvious scars for outsiders to find. He chipped away at her self-confidence day after day, mocking her artistic dreams as useless and childish, belittling her opinions, and making her question every choice she ever made. He systematically isolated her from every person who loved her. He discouraged her from meeting old friends, made up excuses to skip family gatherings, and planted petty rumors to turn people away from her, leaving her with zero support system. He flew into terrifying, violent rages over the smallest, most insignificant mistakes, an out-of-place cup, a slightly late dinner, a quiet question that annoyed him. Every faint bruise staining her delicate wrists, every hidden mark along her jawline, every exhausted, empty, lifeless look in her once bright eyes was directly caused by his unspoken cruelty. For 4 long years, Lila stayed painfully silent. She was too terrified to fight back, too brainwashed by Ethan's constant gaslighting to believe she deserved kindness, safety, or basic respect, and too trapped in his carefully built cage to dare speak the truth to anyone. I still remembered the vibrant, fearless, bold young woman my daughter once was, confident, loud-spoken, passionate about her art, unafraid to chase her dreams and live freely. But year by year, I watched her shrink into a timid, fearful, apologetic shadow of her former self, all for a man who never deserved her love. I never pressured her to leave her toxic marriage, never yelled or begged her to run, because I knew abuse victims only heal and escape when they are ready. Instead of pushing, I waited patiently and prepared relentlessly in secret. Over 4 grueling years, I built a rock-solid case against Ethan's hidden cruelty. I saved every toxic, controlling, aggressive text message he sent to Lila. I logged every single unexplained injury with exact dates and detailed descriptions. I tracked every manipulative tactic, every silent punishment, every cruel comment he hurled in private. I collected witness contact information from people who'd caught glimpses of his violent temper behind closed doors. I stored every piece of proof in an encrypted, secure folder, quietly biding my time, waiting for the day Ethan's perfect public mask would finally shatter for the entire world to see. That long-awaited, inevitable breaking point finally arrived on their 4-year wedding anniversary. After years of quiet gossip and subtle whispers questioning whether their perfect marriage was nothing but a facade, Ethan grew obsessed with silencing every doubt. He planned an extravagant, luxurious grand anniversary party, inviting 30 elite guests, co-workers, high society acquaintances, family friends, and community leaders, all for one selfish reason: performance. This entire lavish celebration was never for love or gratitude. It was a calculated public show, designed to prove to everyone that he was a loving husband, and their marriage was unbreakable. He wanted the whole world to witness his fake perfect relationship, reinforce his pristine reputation, and bury all the quiet rumors that threatened his carefully built image. He spared no expense on decorations, catering, music, and venue, determined to put on the greatest show of his life. The night before the party, Lila called me in pure, unbridled terror, her voice trembling so badly she could barely speak. She begged me not to force her to attend, confessing she knew exactly how Ethan's mood would spiral once the night began. She knew one small misstep would trigger his rage, and she feared being humiliated or hurt in front of everyone they knew. But she had no choice but to go. If she refused his carefully planned party, Ethan would fly into a destructive, violent temper behind closed doors, punishing her for ruining his perfect public event. My heart ached for my trapped, terrified daughter. I had no choice but to promise I would attend the party too, staying close by her side all night, ready to protect her from the monster hiding behind Ethan's charming smile. On the night of the anniversary, the venue looked absolutely flawless on the surface, glowing with expensive, dreamy elegance. Twinkling, glittering string lights draped across the ceiling. Lush, fresh, exotic flowers lined every table. Crystal wine glasses sparkled under warm lighting, and well-dressed guests laughed and chatted happily, oblivious to the nightmare lurking beneath the surface. Ethan played the role of the loving, grateful husband masterfully all night long. He delivered a heartfelt, tear-adjacent speech about eternal love, marital loyalty, and shared growth, earning thunderous, endless applause from every guest in attendance. Beside him stood Lila, dressed in a stunning custom blue floor-length gown that should have made her shine. Professional makeup artfully covered the fresh, faint bruises on her jaw and neck, and her styled hair hid the stress lines etched across her forehead. But no amount of beauty or glamour could hide her pain. She wore a stiff, fake smile for every watching eye, her body rigid with tension, her eyes constantly darting to track Ethan's every mood shift, trapped in a performance she'd been forced to act out for 4 long years. As the night wore on, guest after guest toasted the couple, and Ethan drank glass after glass of expensive champagne. His warm, cheerful public demeanor slowly faded away, replaced by quiet restlessness and growing irritation. The fake patience he'd displayed all night dissolved with every sip of alcohol. Later in the evening, when the crowd dispersed slightly, the two of them stepped aside to the quiet bar area of the venue. It was there that Lila finally chose to speak up about the secret she'd uncovered days prior. While organizing their household financial files, she'd found multiple hidden credit card accounts and massive undisclosed debts Ethan had concealed from her for years. She confronted him calmly, softly, and reasonably, with zero yelling, zero drama, zero anger. She simply asked for basic honesty and transparency in their marriage, begging him to tell her the truth about their hidden finances like a loyal husband should. Without a single second of warning, without any provocation, without a moment to process her words, Ethan completely snapped. He raised his open palm high and slapped Lila across the face with full, brutal, unforgiving force. The sharp, deafening crack of skin hitting skin cut through the venue's soft music and idle chatter, echoing across the entire silent banquet hall in an instant. The music died instantly. Every guest froze mid-laugh and mid-conversation. Every wine glass hovered in the air, and every single pair of eyes locked onto my stunned, humiliated, hurting daughter. A bright, vivid red handprint bloomed instantly across her pale cheek, impossible to hide, visible to all 30 shocked witnesses who just watched his unforgivable public act of violence. The second Ethan's brutal, open-handed slap landed on Lila's cheek. Every trace of music, laughter, and casual chatter in the luxurious banquet hall died completely, swallowed by a bone-chilling, deathly silence that hung thick over the entire room. 30 high society guests froze in their seats, every smile wiped clean off their faces, every glass paused mid-toast, every conversation abandoned mid-sentence. No one had expected to witness raw, unfiltered domestic violence explode right in front of their eyes at a glamorous 4-year anniversary celebration, a night that was supposed to symbolize eternal love, marital bliss, and perfect couple goals. Yet in one split second, Ethan's perfectly polished public image shattered into pieces, exposing the vicious monster hiding beneath his charming, gentlemanly facade. What shocked me most was not the violent act itself, but Ethan's immediate, cold-blooded response. Zero guilt, zero remorse, zero shock at his own brutality. Instead of apologizing or checking on my injured, humiliated daughter, he flipped straight into ruthless, calculated manipulation mode, already plotting how to twist the narrative, fool the crowd, and escape all consequences for his unforgivable public assault. With practiced, effortless ease, Ethan morphed his furious rage into a believable mask of flustered embarrassment and exhausted regret. He raised both hands in a passive, helpless gesture, letting out a shaky, exhausted sigh as he turned to face the stunned, silent crowd of guests. His voice softened into a weary, apologetic tone, crafted specifically to evoke sympathy and shift blame away from his violent actions. He spun a fully fabricated lie for the entire room to consume, explaining that the overwhelming pressure of planning the perfect anniversary event, the endless expectations from family and friends, and the accumulated stress of his busy career had finally gotten the better of him. He insisted it was nothing more than a silly, trivial couple's spat that had spiraled out of control for a split second, a meaningless moment of overstress that anyone could relate to. He begged the crowd not to overreact, not to overthink the incident, and not to ruin their beautiful celebration over a tiny marital misunderstanding, deliberately minimizing his brutal slap as a harmless mistake rather than unprovoked domestic assault. It was a masterclass in social manipulation, and it worked devastatingly well. For 4 years, Ethan had meticulously built an untouchable reputation as the kindest, most patient, most dependable man in our entire social circle. He had spent years curating every interaction, charming every guest, winning over every family member and coworker, so that no one would ever believe he was capable of violence. The crowd was so blinded by his long-standing perfect persona that they refused to accept the undeniable truth they had just witnessed. Instead of rushing to comfort my tearful, injured daughter who had just been publicly abused and humiliated, the guests swarmed toward Ethan to console him. They patted his back, reassured him that everyone understood wedding stress, insisted all married couples fight occasionally, and excused his violent outburst as normal marital tension. In the span of 10 seconds, the innocent victim became the dramatic troublemaker, and the violent abuser transformed into a poor, misunderstood, overworked husband struggling under unfair pressure. Trapped in the center of the crowded banquet hall, Lila stood completely frozen, her body trembling uncontrollably from shock, pain, and overwhelming humiliation. Hot, burning tears streamed silently down her face, streaking through her carefully applied party makeup, but she made no sound, no cry, no protest. 4 years of relentless gaslighting, mental conditioning, and brutal domestic abuse had trained her to shut down, to stay quiet, to endure any amount of public shame and private pain to avoid making Ethan look bad. She had been brainwashed to believe that her suffering was always secondary to his reputation, that her pain was never worth causing him embarrassment, and that any resistance from her would only bring worse, more brutal punishment later. Surrounded by 30 watching, judging people, all their mutual friends, colleagues, and family acquaintances, she felt utterly abandoned, completely alone, and crushed under the weight of public degradation. I could no longer stand by and watch my daughter suffer alone while her abuser was celebrated and coddled by the entire room. All my years of silent preparation, all my hidden evidence, all my patient waiting for his mask to fall culminated in this moment. I stepped forward slowly, calmly, and deliberately, cutting through the crowd of sympathizers surrounding Ethan. I moved directly in front of Lila, positioning my body as a solid, protective barrier between her and her cruel husband, shielding her from his intimidating gaze and the crowd's invasive stares. I locked eyes sharply with Ethan, my voice clear, steady, and unshakable, loud enough for every single guest in the hall to hear every word I spoke. I made it absolutely clear to everyone present that party stress, event pressure, and marital frustration were never valid excuses for premeditated public assault. He had chosen to lift his hand and harm his wife in front of dozens of witnesses, and he would never be allowed to brush this unforgivable violence off as a simple mistake. The second I challenged his lies, Ethan's soft, remorseful facade evaporated into thin air, replaced by a terrifying icy rage that sent chills through every nearby guest. His jaw clenched tightly, his eyes turned dark and cold with unbridled fury, and he stepped aggressively into my personal space, attempting to intimidate me into backing down. He lowered his voice into a dangerous, threatening growl only the three of us could hear, snarling that this was private family business, and that I had no right to meddle in his marriage or correct his behavior. But I refused to flinch from his intimidation tactics. I stared him down unwaveringly, reminding him with unyielding firmness that he had forfeited all claims to privacy the exact moment he chose to physically assault my daughter in front of 30 eyewitnesses. He had staged this entire public party for clout and reputation, and now he would face the public consequences of his own violent choices. Behind my back, Lila trembled harder than ever, her small hands clutching the back of my dress in desperate, fearful pleas. She whispered frantically for me to stop confronting him, begging me to drop the argument and let Ethan save face. Years of cruel manipulation had drilled terrifying truths into her head. That public defiance would only trigger Ethan's worst violence, that she would be blamed for every conflict, that no one would ever believe her word over his perfect reputation, and that crossing him publicly would lead to irreversible ruin for her future. She was paralyzed by trauma, terrified that our public pushback would result in brutal, private retaliation the second we returned home, and she was willing to swallow her humiliation and pain to survive another day unscathed. While Lila and I stood our ground against Ethan's threats, several sharp-eyed, morally upright guests recognized the truth unfolding in front of them. Disgusted by Ethan's blatant lies and cruel manipulation, they subtly pulled out their cell phones, angling their cameras discreetly to record every single second of the explosive confrontation. They captured Ethan's unprovoked rage, his threatening behavior, my calm defense of Lila, and the entire sequence of events that proved Ethan was the sole aggressor. These secret, unfiltered recordings would soon become the most critical, damning pieces of evidence we possessed. Irrefutable. Proof that would single-handedly destroy Ethan's fake narrative and dismantle his perfect reputation forever. Furious that he could not intimidate us into silence, Ethan stepped forward aggressively and blocked our path to the exit, his face twisted with vengeful hatred. He snarled a vicious warning, vowing to destroy both my life and Lila's life completely if we walked out of that venue and embarrassed him in front of his friends and peers. He made it explicitly clear that he would never forgive this public humiliation, and that he would spend every resource he had to make us regret standing against him. Several male guests finally intervened, stepping in to hold Ethan back and prevent further violence, creating the small opening we desperately needed to escape. Without a single moment of hesitation, I squeezed Lila's trembling hand tightly, pulled her close to my side, and rushed her out of the toxic, suffocating banquet hall, fleeing the nightmare she had endured for 4 long years in silence. In that moment, we naively believed that escaping the party meant we had escaped Ethan's cruelty for the night. We thought we had outrun his public humiliation and finally found a moment of peace to heal, but we had no idea just how cold, calculating, and ruthless Ethan truly was. While my broken daughter cried out years of repressed pain and trauma, while I comforted her and tried to help her process the public abuse she'd endured, Ethan was not wallowing in guilt or regret. He was wide awake, plotting a cruel, meticulous, all-out revenge plan designed to ruin our lives and ensure he came out on top. That entire night back at my home, Lila completely shattered into pieces, releasing every ounce of pain, fear, and trauma she had suppressed for 4 agonizing years. For so long, she had been forced to suffer in total silence, swallowing every insult, enduring every hidden beating, tolerating every cruel manipulation, and fighting alone through every dark moment of her toxic marriage. She had been conditioned to never complain, never resist, never tell a soul the truth about Ethan's private abuse, terrified of the consequences that would follow. But after being publicly slapped, shamed, and humiliated in front of 30 people, after watching the entire room side with her abuser and abandon her, her forced strength finally crumbled completely. She collapsed into my arms, trembling uncontrollably, sobbing hysterically as she relived every cruel moment of her trapped marriage. Every bruise, every harsh word, every sleepless night spent living in fear of Ethan's violent mood swings. She was absolutely terrified, knowing Ethan had threatened to ruin our lives, and understanding exactly how far he was willing to go to protect his perfect reputation. I held my broken daughter tightly throughout the entire night, wiping her tears, soothing her shaking body, and whispering constant reassurances that she was finally safe, that she was no longer alone, and that we would never let Ethan hurt her again. For 4 long years, I had patiently waited on the sidelines, never pushing her to leave her abusive marriage, knowing that trauma victims only heal and escape when they are mentally ready to choose freedom for themselves. Now, at last, Lila had seen Ethan's true colors exposed in front of everyone, and she was finally brave enough to stand up and fight for her own life. I had fully prepared for this moment for years, ready to deploy every piece of evidence I had secretly gathered. I had planned to take things slow, file official assault charges, and build our case step by step to ensure total victory. But Ethan's cruelty far exceeded every expectation I had. He felt no guilt for hurting my daughter. He only felt rage and humiliation at being exposed. And he wasted zero time plotting his vicious retaliation against us. Before the first ray of morning sunlight could break over the horizon, just hours after the disastrous anniversary party, my front doorbell rang sharply and insistently. When I opened the door, 2 official court process servers stood waiting on my porch, holding thick, sealed legal documents in their hands. The second I laid eyes on those papers, my heart sank to my stomach. While Lila and I had spent the night crying, healing, and processing the trauma of Ethan's public abuse, Ethan had been wide awake, working tirelessly to destroy us. He had spent every single hour of the night fabricating lies, falsifying statements, and filing an emergency. Ruthless counter-lawsuit designed to flip the entire narrative, paint himself as the victim, and crush us, before we even had a chance to fight back. In his sworn official court statement, signed under penalty of perjury, Ethan told the most brazen, backward set of lies imaginable. He completely reversed every truth of their marriage, falsely claiming that Lila was the violent, unstable, emotionally destructive abuser in their relationship. He lied and stated that he had spent 4 long, patient years enduring her constant violent outbursts, irrational mood swings, and toxic behavior, struggling endlessly to save their failing marriage alone. Most infuriating and ridiculous of all, he swore under oath that his brutal public slap was nothing more than innocent self-defense, claiming Lila had aggressively attacked him first at the party, forcing him to react to protect himself. He crafted an entirely fake persona as a long-suffering, wronged husband trapped in a toxic, dangerous marriage, twisting himself into the victim and my traumatized, abused daughter into the villain. His legal demands were shockingly ruthless, greedy, and merciless, designed to ruin Lila's life completely and leave her with absolutely nothing. He formally petitioned the court for full, sole ownership of their luxurious marital home, complete and exclusive control over all their joint bank accounts, savings, and marital assets, and even monthly spousal support payments paid directly to him from Lila. His malicious motive was crystal clear. He intended to weaponize the legal system to bankrupt my daughter, destroy her personal and professional reputation, strip her of every financial security she had, and punish her severely for daring to expose his fake perfect image in public. He wanted to make sure she suffered lifelong consequences for embarrassing him, crushing her spirit so thoroughly she would never dare stand against him again. Not satisfied with only legal warfare, Ethan launched an instantaneous, widespread social media and personal smear campaign overnight, weaponizing his entire social network to destroy Lila's character. He sent private messages to every mutual friend, every coworker, every distant family member, and every community acquaintance they shared, spreading his fabricated lies about Lila's supposed mental instability and violent behavior. He painted her as an irrational, dangerous, unhinged woman who had terrorized her poor, patient husband for years. Within mere hours, every person they knew had heard his fake version of the story. Friends unfollowed and blocked Lila. Old acquaintances deleted all their past photos with her, and their entire social circle completely abandoned her, choosing to side with the charming, trusted Ethan over the abused, humiliated victim. When Lila saw the official lawsuit papers and read the endless cruel rumors circulating about her online, every last bit of her hope shattered completely. She broke down into desperate, defeated tears, whispering over and over that she would never win against him. After 4 years of relentless gaslighting, she had internalized his lies, truly believing that everyone would always choose his perfect reputation over her truth. She felt powerless, helpless, and completely defeated, convinced that no one would ever believe an abused, quiet woman against the charming, respected man the entire community adored. She thought she had no proof, no allies, and no way to escape the ruin Ethan was determined to bring upon her life. But I never lost faith for a single second. I knew exactly what Ethan was capable of, and I had spent 4 years preparing specifically for this cruel, manipulative backlash. I opened my encrypted, 4-year secret evidence folder and spread every single irrefutable proof out in front of Lila's tearful eyes. I showed her hundreds of abusive and controlling text message screenshots, dated photographic records of every hidden injury and bruise she had endured, detailed witness statements documenting Ethan's private violent rages, and comprehensive records of his years of calculated manipulation, isolation, and emotional abuse. I let her see, with her own eyes, that we had built an unbreakable case against him long before he ever decided to attack us. I spoke to her with firm, unwavering certainty, pulling her out of her defeated mindset and reigniting her courage to fight back. I told her plainly that Ethan only wins if we stay silent and accept his lies. We possessed the truth, we possessed hard evidence, and we possessed the moral high ground. No amount of his manipulation, lies, or social influence could ever erase the undeniable facts we had collected. We were no longer powerless victims. We were finally ready to expose every last one of his lies and take down the perfect husband monster once and for all. The anonymous video file arrived in my encrypted email inbox out of nowhere, arriving like a divine miracle right when we needed it most. In the days following the party, multiple guests had sent me short, clipped phone clips of the infamous slap incident, but every one of those videos was cut too short to be fully damning. They only captured the split second of impact, allowing Ethan's legal team to argue aggressively that critical context was missing, that Lila must have provoked him moments before the camera started recording, and that his supposed self-defense claim was still valid. But this newly received video was entirely different. It was full-length, completely unedited high-definition quality, and captured every single second of the lead-up, confrontation, and aftermath, with zero cuts and zero omissions. The unknown sender had recorded the entire altercation from a wide, unobstructed angle, leaving absolutely no room for Ethan or his lawyers to twist the truth. Every frame of the crystal-clear footage completely dismantled Ethan's entire fake narrative. The video showed Lila standing calm, composed, and perfectly polite the entire time, her posture relaxed, her hands resting peacefully at her sides, her demeanor gentle and reasonable. There was zero anger in her body language, zero aggression, zero yelling, zero hostile movement of any kind. She never stepped toward Ethan aggressively, never raised her voice, never made any threatening gesture whatsoever. The footage irrefutably proved that Lila was completely peaceful and reasonable throughout the entire interaction, completely contradicting Ethan's sworn claims of her violent, unstable outburst. The video's crisp, unfiltered audio captured every single word Lila spoke with perfect clarity, leaving no room for misinterpretation or lies. Her tone was soft, steady, and earnest as she confronted her husband about his years of hidden financial deception. Her exact words were simple, honest, and entirely reasonable for any spouse in a committed marriage. I just need the truth about our hidden debts. We're married, we share everything. That was the full extent of her so-called provocation. She did not insult him, accuse him angrily, or lash out. She merely asked for basic honesty and transparency in their marriage, a right every married person is entitled to. Immediately following her calm, gentle request for the truth, the video captured Ethan's instantaneous, unprovoked explosion of rage. There was no pause, no argument, no warning, no prior conflict. In the blink of an eye, his demeanor flipped from charming party host to furious abuser, and he violently raised his hand to slap Lila across the face with full force. The entire fake self-defense story Ethan had sworn under oath died instantly the second we pressed play on that video. This single piece of footage annihilated his entire legal case, destroyed his sworn testimony, and exposed his lies as deliberate, malicious perjury in front of the law. Lila sat beside me and watched the unedited video over and over again, tears streaming down her face, but these were no longer tears of pain and defeat. For the first time in 4 long, torturous years, she saw undeniable, concrete proof that she was not crazy, not dramatic, not overly sensitive, not the unstable spouse Ethan had lied about. She saw clear evidence that she had always been the calm, reasonable, wronged victim, and that Ethan was the cruel, violent, manipulative liar who had destroyed their marriage and tortured her daily. The thick fog of gaslighting that had clouded her mind for years finally lifted completely, and she rediscovered her lost confidence, her self-worth, and her long-buried courage to fight back. Without any hesitation, we sent this damning, unedited video, along with our 4 years of accumulated evidence, directly to our family law attorney. We immediately filed an official countersuit against Ethan, pressing formal charges for documented domestic violence severe emotional and psychological abuse, deliberate marital financial fraud, and felony perjury for his false sworn statements in court. For the first time in the entire legal battle, we held the absolute upper hand, possessing irrefutable proof that would guarantee Ethan's downfall. The second Ethan's legal team received our full evidence package, he completely panicked. His perfect airtight fake case crumbled into irreversible chaos. Knowing his lies were fully exposed and his reputation was on the brink of total ruin, he abandoned his aggressive, ruthless tactics and switched immediately to fake remorse and desperate manipulation. He flooded Lila's phone with dozens of apologetic texts, tearful voice memos and begging calls, pleading for her forgiveness, promising to change his cruel ways, swearing he would attend endless therapy sessions, and begging for a second chance to fix their broken marriage. He pretended to be a broken, remorseful man, hoping to emotionally manipulate Lila into dropping the case and sparing his reputation. When Lila remained firm in her decision to fight back and ignored every single one of his desperate pleas, his fake kindness vanished in an instant, replaced by his usual cruel rage and vengeful threats. He messaged Lila viciously, promising to drag the divorce case out for years on end, drain all our financial resources, and continue ruining her public reputation indefinitely. As a final act of petty retaliation, he locked Lila out of their shared marital home, refusing to let her retrieve any of her personal belongings, family heirlooms, artwork, or precious lifelong memories. He held her entire personal history hostage, using her most cherished possessions as blackmail leverage to force her into an unfair settlement. Left with no other choice, we prepared relentlessly for our protective order court hearing, determined to legally force Ethan to stay away from Lila, grant her safe access to her home and belongings, and officially validate her abuse claims in court. With the unedited video proof, years of documented evidence, and multiple willing eyewitnesses on our side, we believed our case was completely unbeatable. We walked into the court hearing fully prepared for a clean, decisive victory that would end Ethan's control over Lila's life for good. The morning of the critical protective order hearing arrived cold, bleak, and unbearably tense. The sterile, quiet courtroom felt heavy with unspoken pressure. Every wooden bench, legal document, and quiet clerk movement, amplifying the gravity of the day's ruling. This single court hearing would determine the entire trajectory of Lila's divorce case, her future safety, and her ability to reclaim her life from Ethan's control. Lila and I arrived 20 minutes early, dressed neatly and formally, calm, focused, and fully prepared to present our ironclad evidence. After years of hiding her pain in silence, Lila was finally ready to stand in front of a judge and speak her truth. Our lawyer double-checked every video file, every witness statement, and every piece of documented proof, reassuring us that our case was rock solid, unbreakable, and guaranteed to win. Minutes before the judge took the bench, Ethan walked confidently into the courtroom. Dressed in a crisp, immaculate tailored suit, his hair perfectly styled, his posture calm and composed. He carried himself with the fake humility of an innocent, wronged man unfairly accused of terrible crimes, masterfully playing the victim for the court's benefit. He made zero eye contact with us, putting on a flawless performance of quiet dignity and grace, fooling everyone in the room into believing he was a patient, misunderstood husband, fighting false accusations. No one would have guessed this poised, respectable man was a violent abuser, a liar, and a fraud who had spent years torturing my daughter. Just as both sides finished preparing their cases, the courtroom doors opened, and Ethan's shocking surprise witness stepped forward. Aunt Clara, Lila's most beloved, trusted, and cherished family relative. For all 28 years of Lila's life, Clara had been her closest confidant, her role model, her go-to person for comfort, advice, and support. She had attended Lila's childhood birthdays, high school graduations, college milestones, and her wedding day. Lila had loved her unconditionally, trusted her completely, and shared her deepest fears about Ethan's abuse with her in private. We never in a million years could have imagined that the family member Lila trusted most would betray her to side with her cruel abuser. After swearing a solemn oath under penalty of perjury to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, Clara began her deliberate, calculated, vicious lies against her own niece. She testified falsely that Lila had always suffered from severe emotional instability, irrational violent outbursts, and dramatic mood swings long before she ever married Ethan. She claimed Ethan had spent 4 long, patient years tolerating Lila's erratic, toxic behavior, struggling endlessly to preserve their broken marriage alone. Worst of all, she directly corroborated Ethan's fake self-defense lie, swearing under oath that Lila had been aggressive, confrontational and hostile at the anniversary party, and that Ethan's public slap was a justified, reasonable reaction to Lila's supposed provocation. Her testimony was structured perfectly to destroy Lila's credibility and validate Ethan's fraudulent case. Listening to her own flesh and blood systematically lie to ruin her future broke Lila's heart more deeply than any physical slap or public humiliation ever could. Betrayal from a stranger hurts deeply, but betrayal from the family you love, trust, and admire is soul-crushing. Lila sat frozen beside me, silent tears streaming endlessly down her cheeks, her shoulders trembling with suppressed heartbreak and agony. She could not believe the woman who had held her as a child, who had comforted her through heartbreaks, who had listened to her darkest fears, would sell her out for personal gain. In that courtroom, surrounded by strangers, she felt more alone, more abandoned, and more betrayed than she had ever felt during her entire abusive marriage. Our lawyer immediately launched a fierce, thorough cross-examination of Clara, exposing the countless contradictions, inconsistencies, and blatant falsehoods in her testimony. He referenced private past conversations where Clara had personally expressed deep concern about Ethan's violent temper and abusive treatment of Lila, proving she had always known the truth, but was now choosing to lie. He questioned why she had never once mentioned Lila's supposed severe instability to any family members or friends in 28 years, calling out the sudden, suspicious nature of her testimony. He dismantled every one of her false claims, revealing her testimony as calculated, malicious perjury. Immediately following the court hearing, we dug into Clara's recent financial history and uncovered the ugly, shameful truth behind her betrayal. 3 months prior to the anniversary party and court case, Ethan had secretly paid off Clara's son's entire $20,000 student loan debt, bailing her family out of crippling financial stress. He had purchased her loyalty with a single large financial favor, preying on her family's vulnerability to secure a false witness for his case. Clara had traded her niece's future, her family loyalty, and her personal integrity for financial relief, willingly lying under oath to destroy an innocent victim and save a violent abuser. To make our devastating situation even worse, Ethan's legal team began spreading heavily edited, misleading clips of the party video across local social media platforms. They deliberately cut out all footage of Lila's calm, reasonable dialogue and Ethan's unprovoked rage, leaving only the single split second of the slap. They posted the clipped footage with false captions claiming Lila had violently provoked the altercation and that Ethan had acted purely in self-defense. The edited clips went viral locally, tricking dozens of community members into believing their fake narrative, flooding social media with judgmental comments and hate toward Lila, and further destroying her public reputation. Due to the conflicting witness testimony and the circulating misinformation, the judge declined to issue an immediate ruling, leaving us trapped in agonizing limbo. The unexpected family betrayal had created false, artificial, reasonable doubt in the court's mind, casting unnecessary uncertainty over our previously flawless case. Our guaranteed victory had suddenly become uncertain, and we were left waiting anxiously for days, terrified that Clara's paid perjury would cost Lila her freedom, her justice, and her future. After several endless, anxiety-filled days of waiting, the court's official final ruling arrived in our email inbox, bringing an end to our torturous limbo. The first critical ruling was a huge, overwhelming victory for Lila. The judge fully granted our petition for a permanent protective order against Ethan. After carefully reviewing the full unedited video footage, cross-referencing all witness statements, and analyzing every piece of submitted evidence, the judge officially ruled that Ethan's public slap was unprovoked, deliberate, illegal domestic violence. The court ordered Ethan to maintain permanent physical and emotional distance from Lila, banned him from contacting her in any form, and legally granted Lila the right to return to their former marital home with law enforcement assistance to safely retrieve all her personal belongings, memories, and property without any interference or harassment from Ethan. While this protective order ruling alone was more than enough justice for Lila's years of abuse, The court's additional findings completely obliterated Ethan's entire case, reputation, and future. During the official evidence review process, the court's financial clerk conducted a full audit of Ethan's sworn marital financial documents and uncovered a massive web of deliberate fraud, lies, and illegal deception. Ethan had lied repeatedly and blatantly under oath about every aspect of their shared marital finances. He had hidden tens of thousands of dollars in secret gambling debts accumulated throughout their marriage, deliberately drained large sums of their joint marital savings without Lila's knowledge, and wasted shared marital funds on hidden luxury purchases, secret affairs, and undisclosed personal expenses. Every financial document he had submitted to the court was falsified to cover up his illegal activity. The court's official ruling confirmed beyond any doubt that Ethan's entire lawsuit, fake self-defense claims, and vicious social smear campaign had never been anything more than a calculated, malicious cover-up. He had rushed to file for divorce and fabricate lies about Lila's instability specifically to distract the court, our legal team, and our entire social circle from his massive financial fraud and illegal conduct. Every single word of his sworn testimony was proven to be deliberate perjury. Every accusation against Lila was exposed as a vengeful lie, and every part of his perfect husband persona was revealed as a fake, fraudulent performance designed to hide his crimes. When the final full divorce trial date arrived, our legal team submitted every piece of irrefutable evidence into the official court record. The complete unedited party video, multiple eyewitness statements, 4 years of documented abuse records, detailed financial fraud audits, and official proof of Ethan's felony perjury. Faced with the mountain of undeniable evidence against Ethan, Aunt Clara refused to return to court to continue her fraudulent testimony. Terrified of being charged with perjury, public shame, and legal consequences for selling out her own niece for money, she abandoned Ethan's case entirely, leaving him without his only false witness. The judge's final verdict was firm, unwavering and absolutely decisive, delivering total, complete justice for Lila. The court officially found Ethan guilty of unprovoked domestic assault, long-term emotional and psychological marital abuse, deliberate financial fraud, and felony perjury under oath. Every single one of Ethan's legal claims and petitions was fully dismissed and denied. He was stripped of all rights to the marital home, all joint marital assets, and all shared savings. The court ordered him to fully repay every dollar he had stolen and misappropriated from their joint marital funds, plus long-term compensatory spousal support payments to Lila to compensate for her years of trauma, suffering, and financial loss caused by his abuse and fraud. Ethan lost absolutely everything in one single court ruling. His 4 years of carefully crafted perfect public reputation collapsed completely overnight. Every friend, co-worker, community member, and acquaintance who had ever defended him or sided with him abandoned him instantly once the full truth of his violence, fraud, and lies became public knowledge. He was forced to resign from all his community leadership positions, shamed and disgraced beyond repair in our entire town. Broken, defeated, and universally hated, he had no choice but to pack his belongings and flee the city in total humiliation. He never dared to attempt any form of contact with Lila again, fully aware that his lies and cruelty had destroyed every part of his life forever. Finally free from Ethan's abuse, control, and manipulation, Lila began her long-awaited healing journey. She attended consistent trauma therapy to process her years of psychological damage, slowly repairing her broken confidence, rebuilding her self-worth, and healing the deep emotional scars left by her toxic marriage. She reconnected with her old, loyal friends who had always cared for her, rekindled her abandoned art career that Ethan had once mocked and destroyed, and moved into a small, peaceful, entirely safe apartment of her own, her first ever space completely free from fear, control, and violence. For the first time in 4 long years, Lila no longer had to shrink herself small to make someone else comfortable. She no longer had to apologize for existing, no longer had to suppress her personality, dreams, and feelings to avoid triggering someone's temper. She rediscovered her bold, vibrant, fearless, true self, the young, passionate, confident girl she had been before Ethan broke her. She learned to prioritize her own peace, her own happiness, and her own safety above everything else, finally understanding her true value and worth.